On today's episode of Inside the Mavs, going to get you ready for game one of the NBA Finals between your Dallas Mavericks and the Boston Celtics. Joining me on the show today covers the NBA nationally and the Boston Celtics for the Boston Globe. Gary Washburn joining me on the show here on Inside the Mavs, presented by Aura. Welcome to Inside the Mavs, presented by Aura. I'm your host, Kevin Gray, Mavericks pre- and post-game host on the Dallas Mavericks Radio Network. Appreciate you joining us here for the latest episode of Inside the Mavs. Make sure you download and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast for free. Give it a 5-star rating and write a review for it while you're there. And if you're watching this on my YouTube channel, at Kevin Gray Sports, make sure you like and comment on the video as well. Excited to be with you on this episode of Inside the Mavs as we get you ready for the NBA Finals. Your Dallas Mavericks looking to win their second championship in franchise history. Boston looking to win its 18th championship in franchise history. Joining me on the show today, you can find him on Twitter at G Washburn Globe, covers the NBA and the Boston Celtics for the Boston Globe. Gary Washburn joining me here on Inside the Mavs. Gary, appreciate the time today. How are you?
I'm good. Looking forward to the series. Should be really fun.
It should be a lot of fun and a great series. A lot of stars in this series, obviously with Luka Dončić and Kyrie Irving. But for the Celtics, Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum in this series. And, you know, Gary, for this team in Boston, won 64 games this year. Arguably the best team in the league, arguably the best three-point shooting team. They do a lot of things well. What does this team and this series mean for them, given all that they have accomplished, especially knowing what it's in front of them for an opportunity to win the 18th championship in franchise history?
Well, there's a lot on the line here for the franchise. Since the departure of Garnett, Allen, and Pierce, this team is kind of rebuilt. It missed one playoffs. It kind of decided to rebuild Doc Rivers left in 2013. They hired Brad Stevens. I wouldn't say they were tanking, but they weren't going to try to win 41 games. So they ended up winning 25 games that year. And that's the only time in the last 10, 15 or 20 years now that they've missed the playoffs was that year. They were able to draft Marcus Smart, who's a local guy from Flower Mound, Texas, and they kind of begin their, resurgence. And then they were able to make some shrewd deals in terms of getting the third pick to get Jaylen Brown from the Brooklyn Nets deal, and then the pick to get Jayson Tatum. So it's been a 7 or 8 year process to get here. And they got here a couple of years ago, lost to the Warriors. It was a disappointing situation because they were up 2-1 in that series and had a lead in the fourth quarter of Game 4. So a real chance to take control of the series. Steph Curry happened to them, won that game, and then they were just kind of reeling after that. and didn't win another game and lost 4-2. So this series is really big for this franchise. They have to stamp, get a stamp with a championship. They have to stamp themselves as champions eventually. They can't keep knocking on the door. And I know Dallas is a great team, a great franchise, but they are the 5th seed in the West. And if you look at their playoff road, the 8th seeded Miami Heat, the 4th seeded Cleveland Cavaliers, and then the 6th seeded Indiana Pacers, and now the 5th seeded Dallas Mavericks. Not to say they can't lose a series; they can very much lose a series. But if you're looking for a perfect road to the finals, not facing a top 3 seed in either conference is probably it. So they have to take advantage of this opportunity. I'm not sure what happens if they lose a series, and it depends on how they lose a series. If they were to, what changes they would make. They'd probably bolster the bench some, but a lot is on the line here for the Celtics, for the legacies of Brown and Tatum, for the franchise, Brad Stevens, general manager, coach, everybody's got a lot on the line here because they've been pushing for a championship. And, when several years ago in the late 2010s, it was still Cleveland's league.
Sure.
And then Kyrie comes, and that kind of blew up, and then ends up that Toronto wins a title. Then it was the bubble, and they lost to Miami in the bubble with Kemba Walker, who was playing on one leg. So the Kemba thing didn't work. Then in 21, they just kind of went. It just was not a good year after the pandemic. They lost in the first round, but then they bounced back with a Udoka. Then last year, really heartbreaking, disappointing 7-game series lost to Miami when they fell behind 0-3, came back, and then lose in Game 7 at home. So this team's been through a lot of downs. It's been through a lot of tough times, and they feel like this has got to be the year. They got to make this work. So there's a lot of pressure on the Celtics, up through and down through the organization. It's not saying they can't come back next year, but they will be really, really hurt, flabbergasted if they don't get it done this time, and it's 2 NBA Finals losses in 3 years.
Yeah,
they'll have to figure out something else, and so there's a lot on the line here.
Yeah, and Jayson Tatum speaking recently about how he feels like this finals appearance is different with the experience having gone through what you mentioned, with them up 2-1, having a lead in Game 4 and not ultimately being able to win that series against Golden State. For Brown and Tatum specifically, how big are they going to factor in this series and the mentality and the approach that they're taking, given the experience that they've had over the last couple of years, and how that'll play itself out for them going into this finals against the Mavericks?
Yeah, I don't know how much experience will make a difference in this series. I mean, I don't think Luka is going to be suddenly become half the player he was because he's in the finals.
Sure.
Because it was the pressure. That dude, he's been a pro since he's 13 years old, right?
Yeah.
He's played against fans, throwing things at him, and I'm sure in his Slovenian, professional days and playing for his country. So, I don't see Luka and, maybe PJ Washington, maybe Derek Jones, maybe, but I think, though, Brown and Tatum have to, elevate their game. So I'm not talking about go out of body, but just be better than they were in 22. Be focused and motivated. No lapses, no hero ball. Just play their best basketball when it counts. And that's what legacies are built on. So I think the pressure is on those two guys. They've been together now 7 years. They've been to 5 Eastern Conference Finals, their second NBA final. Both of them are playing the best basketball of their career. Jayson is up and down a little bit, but in terms of a playmaker and assist guy and rebounder, he's playing the best basketball of his career. Offensively, maybe not, but we'll see what happens if he can shake his game up there. So I think they look at this series as an opportunity, but they also take the Mavericks very seriously. I think Game 1 is going to be interesting because both teams are going to just try to figure out how the hell to match up with each other. Who's going to guard Tatum? Who's going to guard Brown? Who's guarding Luka? How long are they guarding Luka? Because you can't give that dude the same look because he's going to figure it out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Who guards Kyrie? Do you let PJ and Derek Jones shoot from the corners? And is that what you decide to give up? But you're like, no, we're shutting down the pick and roll with Gafford and Lively, and we're going to not let Luka just, take target practice on 3-pointers. They have to figure out what they want to allow because they're not going to stop everything. So Tatum and Brown are the heads of the snake. Brown was the MVP of the Eastern Conference Finals, had a great series. Tatum was right behind him, had a really good series himself. So they're playing their best ball, and it's time to prove it. I mean, there's no more excuses. You can't blame lack of rest. You can't blame injury. They've got to show it.
Yeah, and for the Mavericks, they feel the same as far as their group is concerned with Luka and Kyrie. We'll touch on Kyrie here in just a bit, but you started to mention with Luka and the mentality and the way that he approaches the game. And not only do you cover the Celtics, but you cover the NBA from a national perspective as well. What has been the conversation about Luka making this finals appearance for the first time at the age of 25 as a scoring champion, looking to become the first scoring champion to win a title since Shaq did it in the year 2000? What has the conversation been from a national perspective about Luka on this stage, given all the accomplishments that he's already achieved so far?
Well, I think he's become a better player, a team player, better teammate, less selfish. And also just more confident, a better player overall. And he's actually, giving a good amount of effort on defense now. It's the same Luka. He's going to bark at officials every play. He got fouled. How come I didn't get the call here? What's going on? Like there's that Luka. I don't think that he's going away, but I think he's become more of a team player, more of a and embraced being a complete team leader, right? You can say Kyrie's probably a leader in terms of being an old sage of now everybody is somebody's old head eventually, right? So
That's true.
Kyrie was a young kid during these Cleveland days, and now you got kids who were literally probably in, I could only imagine like Derek Lively, who's 20, was 13, 12 when the Cavs won that title.
Mm-hmm.
In 2016, he might have been 12 or 13. So
yeah.
he's like, hey, I was on my middle school team and we were on a road trip. Like that humbles you. That makes you feel old, right? So I think Kyrie has accepted that role of being an old head and being a leader very well. And so I think the narrative with Luka is he's just become more of a complete player. And, if anybody asks, well, who won that trade between Dallas and Atlanta for trade, I think everybody would decide it's now Dallas, obviously. And Luka has a good decade left. Now, you can go into, is his lack of conditioning going to cost him 2-3 years in his career? Is he going to be able to play like this at 33, 34? Well, that's a long time from now. That's 7-8 years from now. But for now, he's a beast, and he's become a better player and a more selfless player, which I think was always a concern with him, just kind of playing the hero ball and dribble, shoot. Now he can do everything.
Yeah, and you mentioned the influence with Kyrie Irving on this team, because that's become one of the major storylines of this series from a national perspective. I believe is the return of Kyrie Irving to Boston. From your time covering him there with the Celtics and what went down with him there, how has he changed from when he was there with Boston, and how come it didn't necessarily work out the way that Celtics fans may have thought it was going to work out with Kyrie there?
Yeah, that's a whole book, man.
Yeah.
This was a lot going on, and it wasn't all Kyrie, but it was a good amount. Okay,
Sure.
like I will not put why the 17-18 and 18-19 Celtics, why they failed. One of them in 18 was Kyrie and Gordon both got injured, and the young guys, Brown, Tatum, and remember a young Terry Rozier made that run to the one game from the finals in 18. They lost game 7 at home. So you come back and Terry Rozier is like, okay, when do I get my turn? Because I think I can run this team too. So that kind of hurt the dynamic of it when your main two guys, your two quote unquote leaders in Hayward and Irving sit out. And then the next year, Rozier, who's a dog who wants to be great, is like, I respect Kyrie, but I should be getting more run here. That affected team chemistry. Kyrie wasn't the greatest leader. There was a lot going on when he got to Boston. There was he had just done the movie Uncle Drew. So he was trying to, sell his brand off the floor. He was uncertain about how to be a leader, and he just was oil and water, especially with Jaylen Brown. And Jaylen is a young guy, but he's a really strong-minded guy. So sunning him or chastising him ain't going to work.
Sure.
That wasn't going to work. A 21-year-old Jaylen Brown, he's a strong dude. Tatum was more like, that's my guy from Duke. We have the same agent. But eventually Tatum kind of took a step back and was like, I'm not in this. So the chemistry with the team was bad. Not bad. It wasn't good because Kyrie was, like I said, this will it seems a simple question. It's a long answer. Like Kyrie's personalities was multiple. And he came to the arena and it was, you never knew what Kyrie you were going to get. Reflective Kyrie, angry Kyrie, don't talk to me Kyrie, happy Kyrie. So that caught his teammates off guard because you don't know what dude you're getting from a day-to-day basis. Okay. then he started to air his teammates out to the media, saying things like, well, I know what LeBron went through now. Boy, I appreciate LeBron because I was a little snot-nosed kid and LeBron had to deal with me, and now I'm doing the same thing. And the young guys are looking at him like, who are you talking about?
Yeah.
You know, bro, you the one tripping. Who are you talking about? Like, that became, it was just the younger players, the Rozier, the Browns, and even Tatum was like, who is this fool talking about?
Yeah.
Like, he acting like we out there, tripping. That dude's tripping. Like, there'd be times where Kyrie would get in the elevator with a team employee and wouldn't say anything and just would, so the awkward ride up the elevator, not, you don't got to hug the guy, but how you doing or something. Like, there was just some really strange things going on. And Kyrie was going through a lot of personal stuff, trying to find his heritage and his lineage. His mother was Native American, he was trying to find himself. And it was not a situation in Boston where you expected to win that you needed your leader to have to try to find himself.
Yeah.
And Kyrie was just, and I will take responsibility. People ask me how I got along with him, and I got along with him fine. Okay. Because I knew what kind of guy Kyrie was, because I grew up with guys like him where you can't lead him anywhere. If you tell him his name is Kyrie Irving, he might be like, well, who told you that? Right. That's kind of how it is. Christmas is, you always use it as an example. Christmas is December 25th, right? No, that's what you heard. That's not what I heard. I think it's 26th. Well, the sky is blue. No, I think it's green, yellowish green. Like, you can't lead him anywhere. And so I think the Boston media tried to lead him, and he was not having it. So what you have to do with Kyrie is ask a simple question that's not leading anywhere, and you got to let him talk. And he'll give you great answers, very thoughtful answers, right? But the Boston media started thinking he was aloof. I was fine with him because I learned that you've got to just throw a question out there, a very simple one, and let him go.
Yeah.
And he likes to talk, and he's very intelligent. And some of his stuff doesn't make sense. I'm not talking about he's intelligent, but it's in circles, and some of it doesn't. It's his world. So all that was going on. And then he made the promise to come back. Don't know why he did that at a season ticket holders event. So you got all these rich people, season ticket holders, who are like, yeah, you're coming back. We're good. Let's make plans for the future. Okay, Kyrie's our guy for the long term. Let's do this. Okay.
It felt like a real inflection point at that moment for him and the franchise to be able to have that commitment.
Yeah, I want to have my number 11 retired. Oh, really? Oh, so he's telling this, and then something happened, and some people said it was his grandfather passing. It was some personal stuff. So by All-Star break, he's having that infamous meeting in Charlotte with Kevin Durant about 2 max contracts and all that. And he would not admit that was about getting the hell out of Boston. But everybody knew it was. And it was like, you ain't fooling nobody, Kyrie. And his teammates was like, yeah, you ain't fooling nobody, bruh. And then Terry Rozier is like, well, shoot, this dude 1 foot out. Why I ain't getting no, like, it was just a lot. And then finally at the end, the playoff series with Milwaukee, he mentally was just not there. There was times on fast breaks, he was like, I'm picking up Giannis. You are? Like, let us know how that goes.
Right.
You picking Giannis up off the break? Like, Kyrie, do you know who you are and who he is?
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, and it was just, so mentally he was gone. And then all of a sudden, I'm going back to Brooklyn. I need to be home. My first chance to choose where I want to really play. I've been a Nets fan all my life and all that. And everybody was like, "Oh man, get the hell out of here."
Yeah.
And then that's when they got Kimba, who unfortunately for the Celtics, was amazing teammate. 180 from Kyrie, but he was on his knees were giving out. So physically, he gave them 1/2 good season, maybe 3/4 of the first season, and he was done. In terms of his endurance, it was hard because I thought Kimba was a great guy, and he was a great player in Charlotte. So, then booing when Kyrie came back, to stepping on the logo. He didn't
flipping the birds to when he was in Brooklyn to the Celtics fans.
Yeah, he didn't handle it well, and so he became a villain. And when you renege on a promise, excuse me, you renege on a promise. You sign with a quote unquote rival team.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about how you always wanted to play home, but a year before you're promising to stay in Boston and you love it here, and your dad played college basketball here, so you know the area, and you want to have your number. You don't tell a franchise like the Celtics you want to have your number retired eventually. Like, that's tough. That's a lot of he was shoveling it there. And so the Boston fans do have a right to be annoyed. It's been a minute.
Sure.
I think Kyrie's matured. I think he's in a way better place in his personal life. Obviously, the Brooklyn experiment was a disaster.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Dallas is the best thing for him. I think he had I want to say he has an older child.
Mm-hmm.
I think that lived in Texas before, so I think maybe he can be closer to his older child. And I know he's been married now, has younger children now, so he's been more grounded, and I think more reflective. And I also think, Kevin, the NBA is a league where if you're over 30 and you're causing drama, the league will nudge your ass out.
Yeah.
Just ask Allen Iverson, ask John Wall, ask DeMarcus Cousins, ask a lot of these guys that are trying to get, Dwight Howard. If you are 30 plus,
there's only so much talent could take you when you start to get up in age. Yes.
You're a headache. The league will say, okay, we got you. There's always a 19-year-old ready, right? And so I think Kyrie saw the writing on the wall. Like, I'm talking and acting myself out of the league, and as much as I'm talented, because to see him work out before games, he's a maestro. He's a master. It's like Baryshnikov. It's like watching Michelangelo. Like, the dude is a master at his craft. To see him shoot like that shot he hit against Denver, the left-handed runner and hook, like,
incredible.
He practices that stuff. Like, that is that's not luck. All the stuff he does on the floor is not luck. That's why my argument, he's a top 75 player. I didn't have a vote. I would have voted for him 10 times out of 10. There's not 75 basketball players on this earth that have been better and more skilled than Kyrie Irving. It's just no. Hell no. But the off-the-court stuff, the attitude, the personalities, not being a good leader, that's what got him here. So I think he understood that his lifeline in the NBA was running out and that he needed to have a good reputation. He needed to resuscitate his reputation, get his life together. And I'm not saying his life was a mess, but it was obviously the personal things. And he didn't get vaccinated, so that hurt him in Brooklyn. And, whatever your belief is on that, it just, when KD does it and Harden does it, and they're like, let's go win one. Well, I don't know. I don't want nobody to tell me what to do. And that was the whole thing, Kevin. It wasn't, it might not have been vaccination. It was like, I ain't letting nobody tell me what to do.
It's more about marching to the beat of your own drum, no matter what. In that case,
you cannot tell Kyrie what to do. You got to make an argument and hope make him make a decision. And he's a grown ass man. Well, that's what he wants to do. But it hurt him in Brooklyn, and so I think in Dallas he has learned, I think, more about himself and learned more about his NBA mortality, because you see all these guys doing these podcasts, wanting to get back into the league and whatever, and the league is like, no, we're fine. You want to deal with Dwight Howard? You want to deal with that drama? You want to deal with John Wall, who's a shell of himself in Washington? You want DeMarcus Cousins? Like, and not to say they're bad guys, but it's not worth it when you can draft a damn 19-year-old, or you can bring in a 20-year-old, send him to the G League, and have him run through a brick wall. You can play Hardy. You can play. You can run through a brick wall. Derrick Jones Jr. You can sign him. And he'll play his ass off and be at practice on time and not miss games because of Zoom calls. So Kyrie, I think, had a come to Jesus moment, or come to Allah moment, and decided I gotta be better here, because the league is going to nudge me out. And it was. The league was going to politely get him out, and he wasn't going to make the money he was going to make. So he had to make Dallas work.
Yeah, and he's been able to do that, to your point when it came to his free agency. Dallas was the one that was able to step up and, make the kind of offer that, however the reputation for him was around the league, Dallas felt that the infrastructure here with Nico Harrison and Jason Kidd having that prior relationship with him, it seemed like has been invaluable to him and his ability to not only succeed on the floor, but off the floor as well, because everything around him is in place for him to be able to do what he does best, which is go play the game without the quote unquote distractions around him or whatever was dealing with him, outside of the court to be able to allow him to flourish. And he's really taken that to heart here and really turned himself into, I'm surprised that he's become veteran leader guy at this stage of his career, even with the talent that he has and marrying all that together to go with a guy in Luka Dončić who has needed some of that kind of ice, if you will, to be able to kind of mellow out a little bit, even with the fiery competitive nature that Luka brings with. And, I'm interested from your perspective that how all this will play out on this final stage, because all the eyes, of course, of the basketball world will be on this series, and how these two teams play the chess match with each other is going to be fascinating to watch. What is one or two things that have stood out to you as you've prepared to get ready to cover this series that you're focusing your attention on when it comes to the Mavericks and Celtics?
Yeah, Kevin, I think a lot of it is what they do with Luka, how many different looks they give him. Are they? I think with the Luka thing, here's the key to me. One, the Celtics are going to want to make Luka work on defense. They're going to want to make him defend. They want to get like. If you have time, look at the game in Dallas. Now, it was before the trade, right? They put Jaylen Brown on him. They made him defend. They got him to foul trouble, and he was just out of sync the whole night. Like, he was pissy. He was arguing with officials. He was doing this after he made a shot. Oh, I got fouled. Like, he was bad, not so good. I'll say bad, not so good Luka, okay? And that's what the Celtics want to do. They want to make him work on defense. They want to make him frustrated, and they want to challenge his endurance. And they also want to do, Kevin, is have him do the hero ball thing where his teammates are standing there on their hips, with their hands on their hips, because that's old Luka, right? But the question is, if you were to ask some of his former teammates, did they like playing with him? Some of them said, hell no, because they weren't engaged, right? He didn't engage his teammates. He is really doing that now. But you want to get him to where it's like he gets into this like, oh, I got this, step back. Okay, three. Like that first quarter in Minnesota, that was perfect though. Like he was dominant. But they want to do that where maybe he's missing some shots, where he is essentially kind of phasing out his teammates. So there's a lot there. And that's a hard job to do. That might not happen. What they can't do is allow Luka to go for 38, but also 18 assists and then 10 rebounds. They can't let him be playmaker Luka and scoring Luka and rebounding Luka and 15 free throw attempts Luka. Like, that ain't going to work.
He's dominating the game for every aspect at that point.
Every aspect. They're not going to stop him do everything, but they definitely have to stop him do something. So if I'm the Celtics, that's what they're concerned about. And then the second aspect is how to defend on the pick and roll, what to do with Gafford and Lively. Obviously, two active guys who are not going to shoot outside of 5 feet, but are going to rim protect, rim run, and score on the pick and roll. And how to contain that when you have a 38-year-old Hal Horford and you have Kristaps Porzingis coming off 5 weeks off. That's going to be interesting. Are they willing to give that up and say, okay, Derek Lively, go for 10 for 10, but we're going to hit these threes. So you hit twos, we'll hit threes.
That's playing the math game.
that might be their plan. And so that's what they're going to have to give something up. Is it those corner threes to Jones Jr. and PJ Washington? They have seen, the one thing about it is they've seen PJ Washington a lot in his career. He's obviously from Charlotte. They have seen him a lot. Okay, so they know, they're very familiar with his game. Now this is a different PJ. I've always looked at PJ over the years and said, why is this dude not better? Why is he just a guy like who's occasionally scoring, occasionally scoring 20 points on a bad team, but it's probably the atmosphere. As much as now he probably wasn't, he's been unlocked and more confidence in him, and keep shooting, PJ, keep doing your thing.
He's got a defined role here in Dallas for sure.
Yeah, probably in Charlotte, it was like, okay, you're a 3, you're a 4, sometimes you're a 5, and then he's playing with LaMelo, and LaMelo's doing all this half-court stuff. So, and then here comes Brandon Miller this year, and they're like, yeah, PJ, you about our 5th option now, bruh, because you got Miles Bridges and Mark Williams. And so, I think we'll see a different PJ Washington, but do you put pressure on him and, Jones Jr. to hit those corner threes? And then with Luka in the 3, it's deceptive because what did he shoot during the season? 33% or something like that?
It's close to 38. Yeah.
He's 38.
Yeah. This was his best year shooting from 3. He was around 38, 39% from 3 on over 10 threes per game this year. Yeah.
So do you let him just keep chucking them? Do you guard him? Do you get the ball out of his hands? Obviously, he is streaky. I mean, if you look at his performances against the Celtics over the years, he's hit a lot of last-second shots. He's a clutch team against Boston. And there's games where he has not shot the 3 well until that game, and then he hits 7. Well, do you change your defense for this? Do you let him shoot himself out? Like, I don't think you can just let him shoot himself. Like, he'll keep hitting them. So there's a lot of. I think the first game will be fascinating because they'll all be filling each other out. Like, these two teams don't know a lot about each other. They played on March 1st. Celtics played a good game, won by 28 points, but they're Dallas, completely different team. Even though Washington and Gafford were in that game, I think Gafford in that game played 7 minutes. So there's a lot of questions here that we neither of us have the answers to, because the teams don't have the answers yet. They got to figure out how they match up. Who's going to guard Luka? Is it going to be Derek White, Holiday? Is it going to be Jaylen Brown? Do you want to put that responsibility on him to guard Luka and try to score? Or do you say, okay, Jaylen, don't take as many shots, just concentrate on being a pest to Luka? Then what happens if he gets into early foul trouble? Because Luka will get your ass in foul trouble.
Yeah, he will.
Get you 2 quick ones. So there's a lot that has to be decided, and I think we'll see this how the series unfolds.
Last one for you. What's your prediction for this series and how this series will ultimately go down between these two teams in the NBA Finals here?
It's a tough one. I think the Celtics in 6. I think with the time off and their philosophy against Dallas, their success against Dallas this year, and just their, like, we can't lose kind of – I'm not saying Dallas can afford to lose the finals, right? But if no one picked – and I don't know what your picks were, Kevin, coming into the Western Conference playoffs, but I don't know if you had Dallas coming out the West, because I know I didn't.
No,
anyway.
we look here. It was like, okay, if you win a first round series, if you're able to get past the Clippers, that's a win, especially coming off of, last year finishing under 500, tanking to get to the, the lottery, keep your pick. Like, winning a first round series was the goal. For them to have overachieved to get to this point is definitely gravy at this point based off of what they were last year. Because
I know I didn't. I think everybody might have had Denver getting back. We weren't sure about Oklahoma City, but obviously got worn down, but they were a quality team. And then when Minnesota won the first 2 games in Denver, everybody's like, oh, we better make our reservations for Minnesota because they're going to win this thing. They're going to go to the finals. So, and even the Clippers before Kawhi got hurt, like, they were kind of a sneaky sleeper team, right? So I think you're looking at the quality of opponent. You would think experience might play a part here, where you got Kyrie with the experience, but that's about it in terms of NBA Finals experience. There might be, like, with Derek Jones on the Heat in the bubble, I think he was. So he's got NBA Finals experience. That was in the bubble. I would think the Celtics should win this series, because they do have, I would say, 5 of the best 7 players. Now, Kyrie, and you can, if your argument is to make them 1-2, you could. 1-3 at least, 1-4, 1-4 if you just don't like Kyrie. If you just got something against them. But I think their depth will work out. And I think that experience will work out. But I also think, I mean, anything can happen here. And Dallas is not afraid to win on the road. They won 3 straight series as without home court advantage.
Mm-hmm.
But the Celtics can't, no lackadaisical stretches, no hero ball. They got to play their best ball in years. And you know, I think they're capable. And you asking yourself, will Dallas ever again look like a 5th seed? Will there be a game or two where they look like a team that was 50-32, right? That was a quality team, but will they show cracks? You know, we haven't seen that since game 1 against Oklahoma City. Mm-hmm. But you got to think maybe it runs out. And I also think Kevin Porzingis is a big key. He unlocks their offense. If he can do anything on the floor, if he can just stretch the floor, hit a couple of threes, it looks like he's going to be playing. I don't think he's going to be 100%. You know, he
gave a real sheepish answer when he was asked about, you know, whether or not he could run. He was like, you know what?
He took a while without pain. He was like, yeah. You know, so we'll see how long, if that lasts, if he, you know, tells us hope he doesn't re-injure himself or whatever. But I think, you know, he's played the 5-on-5s now. So I think they're ready. And I do think the Celtics will win in 6.
It should be a tremendous series between 2 talented teams. And for Boston, a team that's looking to cap off what has been really a historic season for them to be able to win their AT championship in their 23rd finals appearance in franchise history. Just incredible lineage and legacy that the Celtics provide the Mavericks, trying to win their 2nd championship in their 3rd finals appearance. Gary, this was tremendous stuff, amazing perspective going into this series. Tell the folks where they can find you, what they can expect from you in terms of your coverage from this NBA Finals here.
Yeah, BostonGlobe.com, Gary Washburn, G Washburn Globe on X or Twitter, however you refer to it. And we'll have all the coverage from both teams too. It won't just be Celtics coverage. If you're, you know, we'll definitely have our share of Mavs stories, especially with Kyrie in town.
Sure.
And, you know, with Jason Kidd, you know, being a popular guy too. And obviously enough Luka, we'll have all the Luka coverage too. And what he has to say after every game. So, yeah, just look forward to the coverage and look forward to seeing everybody and look forward to getting to Texas, too. That should be a great time, a great atmosphere.
Well, we will definitely show you a good time here in Texas, that is for sure. So looking forward to not only games 1 and 2 in Boston, but also when the Mavs return home for games 3 and 4. Gary, again, thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate you joining us here on Inside the Mavs here on the podcast today.
Oh, definitely, Kevin. Enjoyed myself.
Thank you. That'll do it for this episode of Inside the Mavs. Again, thank you to Gary Washburn of the Boston Globe for joining me here on today's episode. Make sure you download and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast for free. Give it a 5-star rating and write a review for it while you're there. My name is Kevin Gray, Mavericks pre- and post-game host on the Dallas Mavericks Radio Network. This has been Inside the Mavs, presented by Aura.